Hello, money magicians. How are you today? So, today I have a very special guest for us. Her name is Jo Ntsebeza. You guys have heard me talk about Jo. She was the very first ever life coach I ever had. And I told Jo that she ruined me because now I compare every life coach to her. She is just absolutely incredible. I had her in my recent round of the mastermind. I no longer run masterminds, but she was with us for 6 months and everybody just raved about her. She is incredible. On top of being a life coach, she also teaches about creativity, writing, healthy eating, veganism. She's the reason why I went back from I'd gone vegan before and then I'd gone vegetarian. And then when she coached with me, she said, I'll give you 50% off to go vegan. I was like, whatever, go back to being vegan. So I've been vegan and I decided to force the issue and be vegetarian. So I have so much love and respect for Jo, guys. She has really helped me out of some really incredibly challenging times in my life, and she continues to do so. Today, we're going to be talking about sobriety, and I thought, wow, what better person to ask than Jo? And I'll share as the podcast continues why I thought this was such an incredibly important podcast to have. But without further ado, welcome, Jo.
Thank you, Vangile. I think with an introduction like that, my cheeks have gone red. Thank you. Wow. And I'm thrilled because I've been on a sabbatical. So this kind of marks coming out of a sabbatical. And I think it's a great topic to come out of the sabbatical with.
Right? So for me, this was one of the most aha moments. I messaged Jo. How this podcast came to be, guys, is I messaged Jo one day, about 2, 3 weeks ago, and I was like, I've been in the midst of inner work, vow service work, really looking at my business and meditating and sitting with some really uncomfortable emotions. Jo doesn't know this, but like the stuff that's been coming up for me memory-wise, a lot of it has been around the failure of my first business. Oh, well, not my first business, but one of my businesses that I put so much into. Speak to Be Free. She actually coached me right after that. And one day I was just looking at a bottle of red wine and was like, I cannot do this anymore. Like, can't go through this sober. I need wine to take the edge off because this is just feeling so overwhelming looking at the stuff, sitting with it. And I was like, wow, this is so real. This was the first time where I had like sat and looked at my emotions and decided I can't do it and I need alcohol. And I instantly contacted Jo and said, we need a podcast. This is real because I've never felt like I need alcohol for stuff, but for this time I've been like, and you know, it's so interesting, Jo, every so often as I've been sitting with this, I don't know what it is about these memories of my first, of Speak to Be Free failing, but I keep looking at that bottle of red wine and I'm like, this is horrible to do it sober. But because I've done the work with you, I've gone to Vipassana, I understand that even though I'm not an addict and I barely drink wine, I drink wine maybe once or twice a year, you guys. Just the fact, for me, it's the intention behind why I want to drink that has been more prominent. It's not that I don't do it often or I barely do it. It's that I want to do it to escape what I am feeling. And I think that's why we're having this podcast. So, Jo, please tell us about yourself and maybe share with us what was the turning point that made you decide to give up alcohol for good.
It might be possible that if it wasn't for the fact that I was such a drunk, that I wouldn't be doing the work I'm doing today. Because I trained to be a facilitator and counselor and coach. And I could have done that journey just fine at a professional level. But it was the realization that here I am working with other people while my life is a mess. And one of the reasons, it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons that my life was such a mess was because of the role that alcohol played in it. And it was the recognition that as long as I carried on drinking, I wasn't going to be able to clean up the other things that were falling apart. Because alcohol is it numbs the important part of our brain. It numbs our decision making, it numbs our feeling center. And so that realization was what helped me to decide to give up alcohol. In terms of turning points, there wasn't one, there were many. And there were little moments along the way. There was the moment a friend said to me, Jo, I'm scared of you. This was like my closest friend who I'd been through thick and thin with. So when she said that to me, it hit me hard. And that was like at 7 a.m. after a night out of drinking together, and she was dropping me off. And that was her parting words to me. There was a day where another friend and I went out and we had this huge fight, and it got physical, and I smacked her in the face.
Wow.
And that's not who I am. So there were these little moments of like, if I carry on like this, I'm not going to live. Or if I live, I could actually hurt someone else. And I knew I could never live with myself if something like that happened. So it was this accumulation of moments that led to me finally making the decision.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, Jo, that's so powerful. I know you as one of the most gentlest people. Like I always say, you're one of the wisest people I know. So just to hear that is really, really incredible. But I also think maybe that is why you became the person you became. So thank you for sharing. But as you started on this journey, and I can imagine that there are people saying, I can see this about myself. How do you handle some of the challenges, and what were some of the challenges that you particularly faced as you made that decision? And was it a decision that you made instantaneously? And then were you able to quit, or was it a journey?
So first of all, everyone is different. So what worked for me and what my story is can be so different to someone else, because I know many people who've gone through their own journey. And I think it has to do with your past, your trauma, the support system you have. So there isn't a one fit-all answer. In my case, a lot of what initiated my drinking was that I struggle with social anxiety. Even today, I'm telling you, Vangile, if it wasn't for my drunk days, I'd probably have no friends.
Wow.
Because I have this huge social circle, and really it's because of my drunk days that I have them. When I was drunk, I could meet anybody, open up a conversation with anybody. And as you know, I'm a talker, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a talker when you know me. If you don't know me, I'm very quiet. So of course, when I was drunk, it just let me, it takes away those inhibitions. So I knew everybody. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. So one boyfriend said to me, Jo, alcohol makes you brave. That's why I drank. I drank because it made me brave, because inside I didn't feel brave and I struggled to be in the world. Was it easy to quit? So first of all, it wasn't an instant thing, as I said, it was moments. And I had gone to Durban in people who are not South Africans. Durban is a much quieter place than Johannesburg. Johannesburg lives hard, parties hard. We partied every single night in Johannesburg. That was the culture that I was surrounded by. When I went to Durban, it was not the culture. And I went out with friends that I'd met there, and they had one bottle of wine at dinner. And I was like, hey, what's this? One bottle of wine? Are you kidding me? Like that was such a culture shock for me compared to the world that I came from, where we would have gone until 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and I would have gone until 7 in the morning, or, you know. So being in a different environment before I had made the decision helped. And I wasn't an everyday drinker. I only drank when I was going out to party. So I'm what was called a binge drinker. And once I had a drink, I didn't stop. So I could have my drink on a Friday afternoon and I would still be going on a Sunday. So I drank until I dropped. So it's a very specific kind of drinker, because you get others who drink every day. They drink alone. I never drank alone. I didn't drink because I was lonely in my solitude. I drank because I was lonely in a crowd.
Wow.
So that change of environment prepared me. And then there were embarrassing incidents that began to happen in my last 2 years of drinking, where I did things I'm not proud of. Even today, when I think back, I cringe. And there are certain people I hope I never, ever see again. So the combination of things started to affect my vanity in a way. Like, this is not how I want the world to know me. And then the recognition that I could die and I could hurt someone else. So by the time I decided to stop, it was easy. I just stopped. I tested myself 6 months later, like, oh, maybe I've got this. Maybe I can just be like other people. Maybe I can just have one drink. And I tried. And boy, did I fail. And like that, it was the recognition, no, Jo, there's never going to be just one drink for you. And that was the end for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I was lucky because I didn't go through the ups and downs that I know many people go through.
And were your friends accepting?
Initially, not. Some were, some weren't, and it depended who they were. Initially, I think people really missed my party Jo, the party Jo. Because, I mean, Vangile, if I say to you that you know me as quite a serious person, right? I'm really serious. Now, Jo who drinks is not serious. Jo who drinks is wild and carefree, and no one could keep up with me, and people said I was the wildest person around. So that's a Jo that is a part of me. That's a Jo that doesn't know how to be free. That's a Jo that doesn't know how to live without that alcohol. So as much as I'd become a problem for my friends, it was also, they missed that Jo. But I didn't change my social circle. I didn't change. I still went to parties. I still went home at 5 in the morning. Until I realized, gosh, you know what? These parties are boring. Like, these parties are not what I thought they were, because alcohol makes everything seem more interesting. And I realized, you know what? None of this is that interesting. I'm bored. And then I just stopped going.
Wow, this is so fascinating. I hear people say that a lot about drinking. I used to party a lot at university. And even when I was traveling in my 20s, right up until the end of my MBA program, when I started my first business, I feel like entrepreneurship is what like stopped me in my tracks. But I didn't need a lot of alcohol to party, and I enjoyed it. So, but I've heard a lot of people say that. But what I will say is that I got bored with the same people and the same conversations. So what I would do instead is I would travel to the next country to meet new people, have different conversations. So I get it. I really, really.
People who drink have the same conversations over and over and over the same night and the next night. So People who drink are really not that interesting, actually.
It is so true though. And I think that's why I started traveling. I remember being in Cape Town and being like, okay, so I used to smoke a lot of weed, guys. I'm sure I don't know, I've spoken about that at times. So when I was here, I remember the day I decided to start traveling. I was like, well, I hadn't smoked anything. And I was like, wait a minute, we have the same conversations with often, oh, well, not the same conversations, but we do the same things. And then I just had this idea, it's time to finally go traveling so that I can do different things in different countries. Or even if I'm having the same conversations, it's with different people, asking different people different questions. So I get you.
So you went to find your joy, like outside of that small world. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, when I think about it, it's basically almost the same things, but you're just doing different things. I guess most people would say it's a healthier way to party and do things, but very fascinating. So,
Vangile, before you ask me the next question, I did want to say about my friends. If it wasn't for my friends, I don't think I would have healed. So there were mixed reactions, but once they saw I was serious, they were the ones who sat with me when I cried and cried and cried. They were the ones who sat with me in my depression. They were the ones who listened to me saying the same thing over, and my sober self saying the same things over and over again, because the beginning was so difficult for me. So yes, there were mixed reactions in the beginning, and there were the one or two people who tried to get me to drink. But the core of my friends really, once they saw, no, you are serious about this, they had me. Yeah.
I love this so much, Jo. What I'm getting from this is even when you were drunk, you connected with the right people at a soul level.
Yeah. I connected with a lot of right people and I connected with a lot of wrong people. So I connected with everybody, but it's true. What you're saying is that I connected at a really deep level with the right kinds of people because they're still in my life today. And I feel like I owe them my life. And even some of the wrong people, had their own way of supporting me.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love to hear this because a lot of the advice you get, a lot of what you hear is how sometimes it's your friends that are like getting you into the situation. But I think that what you're also sharing is just the value of how your social circle can be so important. I had another guest on the podcast as well, and she shared how her friends taught her how to love herself, which is just so powerful. Your network and your system is really powerful. But so how did your relationship with yourself start to change when you became sober?
The beginning was hard. And it's hard to separate out the alcohol from other things that were going on in my life. Because that last year or two, I was in a terrible relationship. And I had a broken heart. And I didn't have a good self-perception at all. And the alcohol exacerbated that. The alcohol made it worse. So that first beginning period was hard and I got quite depressed. So it's hard to separate out the alcohol from the messiness of relationships, from career stuff, from past traumas that I had ignored. I think what happened was everything just came to a head where I felt and I had some kind of what maybe you could call a breakdown that just took me to my bed and I didn't really want to go out. So my beginning after the first year of just, I suppose, indulging that my beginning was to pick myself up and to see myself differently. And there were active things that I did. The first one that was a turning point being karate, that I went and started karate. I was terrified to do it. I was 28. It felt like I'm too old to do it. I was scared to do it. And I said to myself, Jo, just one class. And remember, I'm someone who has social anxiety. And I did not attend dance classes or any of those things in high school. And in primary school, I was teased and bullied. So walking into a class of my peers, doing something I'd never done before, took everything it had in me. And that was the beginning of a change in self-perception for me, because it fed me physically. It helped me to learn how to be in my body, connect to my body, but it also nourished me mentally and spiritually. And it opened the door to things. And I remember one December sitting and I wrote a list of everything I didn't like about myself. There was a book called Better Boundaries. I can't remember who the authors are. My mother bought it for me. And I sat and I worked that book. And I wrote that list. And it was like, which of these things can I change? Which of these things are about accepting? And I worked like through that list that entire December. And it was the beginning of seeing myself in a different light. Does that answer that question for you?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, if I'm silent, I'm just thinking about the amount of courage that takes, and I'm just thinking for someone who doesn't have that courage, because I know in life, especially maybe if you haven't been fully in your body and fully conscious, there are some things that you may be very deeply ashamed of. How do you start? How do you even start before even making that list? Because I assume for most people, the list itself is daunting. Where can they start?
I'm going to hold the answer around the shame. I think the starting place is so different for everyone. I want to share one of the people in my Fresh Start program who has spoken about her journey on social media, because she got sparked towards sobriety. And for her, what sparked it was the simple things like taking a power walk every day. And the fact that she recognized she wasn't spending enough quality time with her child. And her starting point was running.
Wow.
Someone else's starting point could be writing. Someone else might need to go to AA or an equivalent. I mean, there are so many support programs now available for free. Yeah. Someone else might need, their starting point could be a psychologist. So my thing is to trust myself and the instincts and the whispers. I listen to the whispers inside me. If the whispers inside me say, Jo, what if you were to go and walk in parks every day for 2 hours? I listen to that whisper. And then maybe like after 4 days, I'm like, thanks, but that was a nice experiment. Okay. But I do what I can to act on those whispers. So I think if someone's asking for a starting place, what is the whisper for you? Rather than someone else's formula,
Jo, I'm all about the whispers. Like, it doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to make sense for you. Oh, I love that answer. I love that answer. I just wanted to ask, what significant impact has quitting alcohol had on your finances and even on your professional life, especially as an entrepreneur?
Professionally, I mean, the time that I was drinking so much, so I was showing up at work, but if you're showing up at work every day with hangovers, and your focus point. So for me, because drinking was linked to my socializing, my focus point was all about socializing. My focus point was not about what do I want in my life? What do I want for myself in my career, in my business, in my finances? My focus point was like, where am I going for the week? Where, where's the next party? So that you can imagine then the shift, that now that's not the focus point. My focus point is like, what do I really want for myself? And the moment you start asking yourself those questions, where you put your attention is where you are going to put action.
Yeah.
And as that was no longer feeding me, I became inspired to find other things to feed me. So my energy went into developing myself professionally. And that just accelerated now that I wasn't drinking. And obviously the impact on finances, that you're not spending money on alcohol. I mean, people spend, when I run my boot camp, people save so much money because they're not spending money on alcohol and cigarettes and meat. Like they're like, Joe, look at how much money I've got this month. And alcohol is expensive.
It is so expensive. I'm laughing because when I had to, for my lobola negotiations, the where you get engaged, and then during the negotiations, I had to go get alcohol. And I remember just standing in the store and looking at these guys and be like, how do people sustain this?
Yeah.
It's not sustainable.
There are like certain industries that go up when the economy goes down, and alcohol is one of them. And I remember once in the Eastern Cape in the 80s, the Eastern Cape, for people who don't know, is just one of the poorest places in the country. And I remember like seeing people who looked like they hadn't eaten in weeks with beer in their hand. And so it's like, somehow people find the money for alcohol, even though they have nothing.
Yeah.
And the role that alcohol plays in a society of numbing a society to just not feel. And if we don't feel, we're not going to be proactive about building either.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's it, right? For me, that's why I didn't want to feel the discomfort in my body as I'm working through certain things in my business, and they reminding me of my business Speak to Be Free and some decisions I made there, and like how my emotions took over in terms of just like feeling frustrated, feeling like nothing is ever working out, feeling powerless, which are all trauma emotions, right? And so not wanting to work through that and look at that. And also just now that I'm like sitting more with it, I'm like, wow, some of these emotions were just, I didn't know better in my business. I had this memory the other day where I remembered like I wrote down 12 social media sites that I would post on every day. And when I failed to post on there, 12 sites every day. When I failed to do that, I would beat myself up. And I'm like, it is not sustainable to build relationships on 12 platforms, all that. But I could feel for younger me, right? But like before then, having to go through those emotions and like, they were so yucky, and you want to numb it. So alcohol is a great tool to numb things. And you think it makes things better, right? Because it's like, if I don't feel it now, then at least I'm not feeling it now. And one of the things that has helped me, because I've been meditating for a while through Vipassana, has been just to realize that just because you don't feel something now doesn't mean at a very deep subconscious level, your body's still not dealing with it. I could be ignoring it, but at the deepest levels of my subconscious, it is still there. It's just so that I am numb on the conscious level. And it just means that now I'm creating a new pattern as to how to deal with emotions and uncomfortable sensations in my body. Like I am now teaching my conscious mind to deal with this through alcohol as opposed to just deal with it through just being in my body. So that has helped a lot. I think one of the best things that happened to me in my life, I don't know what beautiful karma I weaved, was that in my 20s, I discovered yoga and meditation. Really, before I even, really went out there, before I even turned 26, I had already discovered all these practices. And I'm so, so grateful. I always go like, wow, why didn't I discover them just 6 years earlier? But I'm still like, you know what? At least I discovered them. So very, very grateful.
It's a way of life, what you're speaking about, Vangile. I'm not talking about the meditation and yoga. I'm talking about how you handle your feelings. That we are brought up to reach for a cigarette, for alcohol, for weed, for painkillers. Have pain, take a painkiller.
Yeah.
Have a headache, take a painkiller. We are taught that when we're hurting in any way, to numb it. And that is a way of life. And that's the mind shift, is to what you're saying is that you found another way. And that numbing it just ignores the problem. And if you find another way, you solve the problems more quickly.
I will never forget. So here's why I truly fell in love with meditation and yoga. So I've known about meditation for a while, but I chose chanting. And not that chanting is bad, but I would chant. And because I just felt meditation was too challenging. But at the same time, I would go to yoga. And then I went to Vipassana and I came back to yoga. This is so interesting. At that point, I had done yoga for maybe 3 years consistently. But I think the way that I did yoga was from a space of like, oh, this is just fitness, it's making me look good. And then I went to Vipassana and I came back to yoga. And I will never forget that first month coming back from Vipassana in yoga. I had never noticed my breath and how my body always just exhaled and how my body felt after every breath and what yoga was doing to me. And it stopped being about the stretches. And I'm a yoga teacher, but like I don't focus on how much you can bend and flexibility, because I feel like yoga is so much more than that. Because I spent 3 years being all about the flexibility, which is great. Now I can show off once in a while and it gets people through the door. But I feel like for what you stay for the understanding of what is happening at a physical level and the connection to the breath, and then just noticing how your mind shifts when you walk out that door of the yoga studio compared to when you walked in. I have never noticed that. And that for me is why I continued with yoga, and more importantly, continued with meditation, because I was like, I've been doing this for 3 years. How did I not notice this before? Yeah. So, and then that also helped me start noticing my body and my breath in everyday life when I was dealing with very particular situations, to say, okay, this is what's happening. This is where the discomfort is. And that has helped tremendously. And that's how I was able to also not just learn from theory, but see from myself that the numbing doesn't work.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'm still the same person. I'm still with the same problems, which is why I think alcohol companies continue to thrive. No shade on those companies, but they continue to thrive because they know that your problems will never go away. One drink won't make it go away. Tomorrow you still have to face yourself. You still have to face the problem. So why not another drink and another every single day?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So I just shared about my my shifts and things that help me cope. So Jo, can you share what are your coping mechanisms? What are some things that have helped you cope? And you talk about Fresh Start. Can you please also talk about that? I have clients in Fresh Start and they rave about you. Numisa is currently raving about Fresh Start. So Numisa is Wealthy Money's assistant coach, guys. And I've interviewed her on this podcast as well. She's been raving about Fresh Start. So maybe share with people because maybe someone can benefit and may want to join.
The Fresh Start, I think Fresh Start, what I did was I put in everything that had helped me over a wide span of time, but I condensed it. It was like one day I was sitting in the depression and thinking, I know what I need, but there's nothing out there like this. So I created it. And it's got lots of different things that people can draw on to help one, not just to cope better, but to create anew, to really create anew and feel alive. Because what are people looking for when they're drinking or whatever substances they're taking? Ultimately, the process of numbing is really a desire to feel alive in a positive way, not feel alive because of drama, but to feel that feeling that makes you want to live. For me, there's no doubt that exercise plays a role in our happiness chemicals, just at a pure physiological level, that exercise is important. And I mean, studies have shown that people who are prone to Alzheimer's and dementia, that it can be delayed or even prevented just through exercise. There's a crucial dynamic that exercise plays on our brain. You mentioned meditation, so I have a different meditation path to you, but meditation was it was a huge turning point. And once I learned how to meditate with this particular path, I tried several paths, and it's called light and sound meditation on the inside, not listening to light and sound on the outside, but listening to light and sound on the inside. I tried others and they didn't do it for me. My depression just lifted. There was a dark cloud that made me feel like there was no out, like someone had locked me in a basement somewhere. That was the sort of the way I felt. And that meditation just changed everything for me. And interestingly enough, Vangile, like with my meditation path, you have to commit to never drinking, because alcohol interferes with your spiritual development. So that has helped, because it's a guiding thing that there's no getting off. Like I've made a commitment to not drinking now at a much bigger spiritual level.
Yeah.
Community is everything. Like generally with my programs, I try to create a community to give people. Even like, the one I'm running now, it didn't come from me. It came from other people. It was a very small group of people. And I said, well, look, if we're going to do this, it has to be community. Because community provides us happiness chemicals on its own. Serotonin and oxytocin. Oxytocin is what we feel when we feel safe and trust. We feel trust and we feel love. Serotonin is what we feel when we're proud of ourselves and helps us to be confident and helps us sleep. So a lot of the reasons people reach for substances are for those two things. I mean, dopamine is a different thing, but alcohol is not so much about dopamine as much as it is about serotonin and oxytocin. So community and connecting, it's why the AA works. Because people get to go to a group of people every day, share their stories, feel loved, feel accepted. When I started studying the effect of happiness chemicals, so serotonin, for example, Serotonin is released when we do well in front of people, when we're recognized and acknowledged and validated publicly. And you will experience more serotonin if you're a big fish in a small fishbowl than if you're a small fish in a big fishbowl. So it's not about your economics. It's not about your like where you are. It's about your status. And if you have a high status in a small world, you will experience more serotonin than if you have a lower status in a so-called higher world, like a celebrity world. Like people might think, oh, once you're a celebrity, you've got it made. Actually, people who are celebrities may experience very low serotonin, except for every now and again when they have hits.
Wow.
So those little things for me helped me to understand what we need. So Fresh starts about that. So I don't go into the science of it. I don't explain to people what's behind the activities they've got to do. But those are some of the things that I'm doing when I get people to do what they've got to do every day. Because it's a whole range of little things they've got to do. It's about sowing the seeds for the chemicals to flourish and changing those brain pathways.
Wow, that's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. So, what are some of the biggest lessons that you have learned about yourself and just life through this journey of sobriety? Life is a very broad question, I know.
It's a very broad question. Perhaps the biggest lesson was spirituality, like connecting with God, connecting with higher self, whatever. Everyone has different language for it. Because before I didn't have any connection. And I was almost turned off by the idea of it because of Christian national education in this country. Which was a really brainwashing type of religious teaching at school. So it put me off. And the journey helped me to discover that for myself in my own way. The other thing I think that I learned is relationship is everything. The biggest triggers for using any kind of substance is relationship. Even if we say it's like failure in our professional lives, why does it matter? It matters because of what people think of us.
Sure.
So even our desire for more money, other than we have a desire for money to survive, but I'm talking about beyond survival. So now you're beyond survival and you actually have enough. Why do you want more? Ultimately, everything comes back to relationship. So relationships are everything. And so I put a lot of energy into learning about relationships, doing better in relationships. I wish I could say that doing so has made me fantastic in relationships, but I have lots of areas I still battle in. But without doubt, relationships have come a long way in my life compared to where they were back then.
So you have helped me with relationships, okay? Like I am just like I feel like the fact that I'm even married, like you're one of the people that has helped me just, I'm like, wow, is this truly me? Am I like really relationshiping? You are incredible at that, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so those two things were, I think, probably the biggest things. And maybe the third thing is related to do with how we treat ourselves. Because I remember having the realization that I didn't respect myself. And if I didn't respect myself, how are people going to respect me? How are guys going to respect me if I didn't respect myself? And that comes back to things like exercise, the way we eat, just in general, the way we treat ourselves. And so that perhaps was the other epiphany. And there was a word that grabbed me. I can't remember who I read it, where I read it, who was speaking, but it was a teaching somewhere, the word reverence. And the word reverence, the way it was explained to me, is you take the word love and you take the word respect and you put them together. And reverence has a spiritual connotation to it because it is about something bigger than you. Having a reverence for life, having a reverence for yourself, having a reverence for everything around us. So that word stuck with me.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing, Jo. What you've said about relationships, I completely agree. This is why I say that money is not an individual pursuit. It's such a collective pursuit because so much of what we do around money is because of relationships for all the many reasons that you've mentioned. So actually working on relationships solves a lot of things in the process. So I love it. It's never just about one thing and everything's so deeply interconnected. So what advice would you give to someone who is thinking about quitting alcohol and doesn't know if they can maintain that on, I guess, like infinitely or eternally? Is that the right way to put it? Because I think one of the things that I've seen with people is why most of us don't start a thing is that we're so scared that we don't have to maintain it. And then we don't trust ourselves and our ability to maintain a thing.
Yes, 100%.
I think it depends where someone is. So someone who's really drinking a lot every day will need support. Alcohol is actually quite dangerous to just quit. It's one of two drugs that you can die from if you just quit. People don't realize how dangerous and damaging alcohol is. So I do think that some people do need to seek out support. And you can seek out support if you're not ready to quit. You don't have to quit before you seek out support. You don't have to be ready to seek out support. Go and seek out support. The things that I've mentioned can also be a good place to start. Like starting karate, for example, led to me quitting cigarettes. Quitting cigarettes for me was much harder than quitting alcohol. And if I hadn't started karate, I'm not sure that I would have been able to quit cigarettes the way that I did. So sometimes it just takes one thing that gives you a taste of life on the other side and to go, wow, this is what it could feel like. I want more of this feeling. There are meditations that you don't have to have quit alcohol to go and learn. It's just not advisable to do a lot of meditation if you're drinking. But there are meditations that teach you how to do it safely so that you don't put yourself in any kind of danger if you are still drinking and you meditate. And Vangile, there is nothing like prayer. And I mean, I didn't have prayer when I started my journey. I've had other things in my life where I just felt like I couldn't shift it. And I was in such a dark place. And what I've learned is that there's a reason why you go to rock bottom, because we're only sincere when we hit rock bottom.
Yes.
That's why rock bottoms become a turning point, is that we're not serious enough until we hit that rock bottom. We have to truly want something else, not think we want something else. So prayers don't work until we're there, where we're so desperate, we feel like, you know what, I will do anything. I will do anything it takes to create this change. That's when change will happen. So find a community, start doing things that are good for you, find people in your life who are sober, start creating a social life that's outside of alcohol, and reach out to people, to support groups.
Mm. Oh, I love this advice, Jo. This is so, so awesome. So, my last question to you, before I ask how people can reach out to you and work with you, is how do you continue to grow and evolve on your sobriety journey?
Vangile, I think at this stage, it isn't a sobriety journey for me because I really haven't, it doesn't feel like it's a journey that's hard to be on. Like being sober is not where my challenge is. Like I left that behind like 26 years ago. Once I made that transformation, I made it and I haven't looked back.
Mm.
I think that the journey, maybe the word sobriety can be used, but not in the context of alcohol. I think it's about sobriety of self,
Mm.
clarity of mind, and a sobriety to be alive. What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to want to be alive? And that feels like that journey has never ended. That feels like there's lots of up and downs, and there are months and days where I have felt like, you know what, I don't really want to be on this planet. I don't like this planet. Life is too hard. And then there are other months and days where I'm like, oh my God, life is so great. I love living. So I think that's the journey. And the what I do probably hasn't changed.
Mm.
Perhaps what's shifted is the quality of attention to the what I do. So giving the quality of attention to meditation, the quality of attention, like I've found very helpful is focusing on the quality of my thoughts. That's made a big difference to me because I'm a pessimist. I tend to think of the worst. And I make an active thing to say, think something else, don't think that. That has really helped me a lot. So the quality, really it's about the intensity and the quality that I'm giving to the very same activities. Perhaps that has shifted over the years.
Oh, wow. I really, really love that. Thank you, Jo. As usual, I feel like whenever I talk to you, I get so much value. It's never wasted. It's always just like I walk away just thinking, oh my gosh, I really, really need to become wiser in life. But
Well,
I'm so,
we feed each other, Vangile. We feed each other, So
yeah.
it's up.
But I'm so grateful, A, to have you in my life, and B, that you came on this podcast to share your wisdom on such, I think, a very sensitive topic, and you shared it with such grace. So, how do people reach out to you, particularly around working with you and with Fresh Start? Guys, I have heard incredible things about Fresh Start. So, for anyone who's working, I've had clients take Fresh Start for eating stuff if they want to change their eating habits, work out more, change habits in general. So, how do people work with you? How do they get onto Fresh Start?
So before I go to Fresh Start, I want to tell you about my new direction, and I'll be quick with it. So I'm starting something called Voice to Visibility. So that would be one way people find me, would be voicetovisibility.com, except for I haven't launched it yet. So it depends when someone listens to this podcast, right? And it comes out of, as I said, I have that social anxiety. So showing up in front of the world is really hard for me. And I want to share those lessons with people about how to be bigger in the world when you need to be bigger in the world, and how to be quiet in the world when you need to be quiet in the world, how to use your voice to influence, to make your life happen, to do more of the things you want to do. And Fresh Start for me is part of that, because Fresh Start gives people a new lease on life and gives people a new confidence to go for things. So until I've launched that website, people can find me on Facebook. And if perhaps you can just post a link under your podcast. I don't know if that's possible for people to
Yes,
click on.
definitely.
We can just for now do my Facebook link so that people can just find me there and send me a message. I do check my other inbox quite regularly. And so I'm hoping to run the next Fresh Start in September. Spring's always a good time to do it.
Yes, definitely. Can people join Fresh Start virtually?
It's an online program. So it's an online program and it's a group program, and I only run it twice a year. And, I haven't. I mean, I haven't been on a sabbatical for a couple of years. So it's running now by accident because of demand, not because I wanted to. I even told them no like 7 times. No. For about 3 weeks, I said no. So as it's happened, I think, yeah. So
because it's so good. So people are like, sorry, you've just got to open up the door.
That's right. Yeah, so now that's happening, I'm contemplating maybe I will do it in September.
Okay. Guys, reach out to Jo. The link is in the description. If you're watching this, her Facebook link is in the description. Reach out to her. She is amazing, and she will definitely have a conversation with you. Sign up for Fresh Start, honestly. And I say this as someone who's been a client of Jo's on and off. Like, she keeps trying to get rid of me as a client, and I keep coming back every so often because she is so incredible. She really knows her stuff, right? So can't give her enough of her flowers, honestly. Thank you, Jo, and thank you, Money Magicians, for listening, for tuning in. I hope this podcast has been very valuable to you. If you know someone in your life that could really use this information, especially around sobriety, please send them this podcast. Have them listen, share it, and of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave us raving reviews on Spotify, on Podbean, and subscribe. Let us know what you think. And if you're looking to get started on your money journey, I do have the free 7-day tapping into ancestral money training. The link is at the bottom in the description of this video. Do check it out. And of course, you can always check out the Money Magic course. You can also reach out to me about my one-on-one coaching. But until next time, see you. Cheers.
Thank you, Vangile. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jo.